on the line with us Cliff May, the founder and president of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. DefendDemocracy.org is the website. And you can reach him on Twitter at Clifford D. May, M-A-Y, or at follow FDD. Cliff, welcome back. It's been a while. You wrote an interesting memo, article, piece?
Column, actually.
Column. It's in the Washington Times. You're right. November 25th. Memo to presidential campaign advisors, in which you suggest that Hillary Clinton should put national security at the top of her list. You go on to say the next president must end the politically correct ban on government officials studying the ideologies and theologies that motivate our enemies. Are you familiar in general with this fellow by the name of Johnson, Daryl Johnson?
Daryl Johnson? No, doesn't ring a bell.
Okay, he is the top government counterterrorism official, and he's an analyst with the Department of Homeland Security. He spent 6 years with the agency amassing all kinds of data on the threat to the United States of terrorist groups in the United States. And this was during the Bush administration, the George W. Bush administration, 6 years of that administration. And in 2009, the report that he co-authored was issued by the Department of Homeland Security about right-wing terrorist threats within the United States. You're 7 times more likely as an American citizen, you and me, Cliff, to be murdered by a white Christian terrorist in the United States than by a brown Muslim terrorist. 7 times more likely. He wrote that study, which has now been proven to be prescient, brilliant, and yet Republicans and conservatives and neoconservatives like yourself attacked him and the study so aggressively that Obama had the study pulled and he lost his job. I mean, isn't that the opposite of what you're calling for here? You say, the next president must end the politically correct ban on government officials studying the ideologies and theologies that motivate our enemies. What about our right-wing enemies? They are the most dangerous people in the United States.
Well, first, I'm not familiar with the study. You might have mentioned it to me beforehand if you wanted to discuss it.
Oh, there was a huge kerfuffle about that in 2009.
Well, I missed some kerfuffles, and I follow other kerfuffles. Look, the reason that terrorism is back in the news, it seems to me, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, is what happened in Paris. And if I read that correctly, that wasn't a bunch of right-wing white guys with and gun nuts. That's not what happened there. What we had there was the Islamic State deciding to go into Paris for the second time this year and slaughter a lot of people. Now, some citizens...
Well, that's a slight mischaracterization, Cliff, and you know that. It wasn't the Islamic State decided to go into Paris. There were Parisians. These were citizens of Belgium and Paris who decided that they liked the Islamic State's ideology, and so they were going to follow it and shoot up some people. Nobody came in.
Well, that's my point. The Islamic State has an ideology. We need to understand its ideology. I would call it jihadism. Hillary Clinton has called it jihadism. I give her credit for that. And we need to understand the various Islamic and Islamist and jihadist ideologies that are out there, those practiced and preached by the Islamic State, by Al-Qaeda, and by the Islamic Republic of Iran. If we don't come to terms with the ideologies, movements, and regimes that seek to destroy us, then I think we have a big problem on our hands. You obviously don't.
I agree. No, I absolutely agree with you.
No, we got white males here. We got to really watch them because they may be gun nuts, and that's what we should worry about.
Well, no, they're killing us.
Don't need to worry about what happened in Paris because those were just Frenchmen who...
They're killing us. No. Okay, I will take this back into the international sphere if you want, but just for the record, we have had 52 Americans in the last 15 years killed by, or since 9/11 was an outlier. Take that out of the equation. We've had 52 Americans killed by Muslims on U.S. soil. We've had 360 or 352 Americans killed by white Christian terrorists, right-wing, self-avowed conservative terrorists.
Let us
here in the United States.
That right-wing terrorists are a problem. Let me also say that since I represent an organization that follows foreign affairs and national security, I am more concerned about the jihadist movements
let's talk about that.
Around the world.
Let's talk about that exclusively. Okay, I'll stipulate that. Let's talk about that exclusively. And you're right. That's your area of expertise. Let's talk about that. I'm sure you're familiar with Lieutenant General Michael Flynn.
Michael Flynn, I do indeed.
Yeah, he was the former head of security for the United Kingdom. And
Michael Flynn is the former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency here in the United States.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, you're right. Former head of U.S. Special Forces, Defense Intelligence Agency. Here, this is retired General Lieutenant General Michael Flynn told the German newspaper Der Spiegel that Americans allowed their anger on 9/11 terrorist attacks to lead them into dangerous military policies that failed to address the root causes of terrorism and actually helped create new and brutal terrorists. We were too dumb, said Flynn. We didn't understand who we had there at that moment. When 9/11 occurred, all those emotions came over, and our response was, where did those bastards come from? Let's go kill them. Let's go get them. Instead of asking why they attacked us, we asked where they came from. Then we strategically marched in the wrong direction. He's basically blaming ISIS on the George W. Bush administration and on advice like yours that our response to every issue should be to bomb them.
Well, that's not my advice. You won't find me giving that advice. I know Michael Flynn well. I know exactly what he meant. You're somewhat misrepresenting him. He does put some blame on George Bush for not having a strategy against jihadism, for not understanding the various ideologies, which would have helped him understand how Saddam Hussein's ideology was different from al-Qaeda's, was different from Iran's, because we were not studying Islamism and jihadism in the War College, at the FBI, and other places. We had this war on terrorism, which is not exactly the same as a war on jihadism. Terrorism, after all, is a weapon. It is not an ideology. Now we have less than that. We have a war against violent extremism, which is absolutely meaningless. Michael Flynn was also the one who understood that ISIS, the Islamic State, was a threat to us, was not junior varsity. As a result, he was forced to resign his position as head of the Defense Intelligence Agency under President Obama. Are you aware of all those facts as well, Tom?
Yeah, I absolutely am. And he is equally blaming Bush and Obama now in this regard.
Everybody's to blame. Now the question is, what do we do about it?
Right.
Now, you want to put blame only on white guys and George Bush. I'm saying we are not studying the ideologies that are bent on our destruction, and we should be. And you would agree with me on that.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that. But as Michael Flynn said, as brutal as Saddam Hussein was, I'm quoting, it was a mistake to eliminate him. The same is true for Muammar Gaddafi and for Libya, which is now a failed state, which would be under Obama. The historic lesson is that it was a strategic failure to go into Iraq. History will not be and should not be kind with that decision. You were all in favor of our going into Iraq, as I recall. You and I debated it on this program years ago.
Absolutely right, and I thought at that point there was good rationale to do so, but it was not part of a larger strategy. And Michael Flynn, who I know, who's a colleague, I take his criticism very seriously. I think he makes a good point. Certainly, you don't go into a country like... Look, when we went into Iraq, the initial goal, the initial mission was to pull down Saddam Hussein, and that we did readily and quickly. The problem is we had no good plan after that for what we're going to do with Iraq. Now, we actually got to a pretty good state before Obama took office, in the sense they were having elections. There was essentially more freedom there than there had been anywhere else before. It was passed over in a stable state. Obama compounded the mistakes that George Bush made by saying, I know what let's do. Let's pull out every soldier we have and leave
Bush negotiated that. Come on, let's be honest about this, Cliff. Bush negotiated that, and the Republicans in Congress refused to allow Obama to change it.
Tom, part of the problem I have with you is your goal is just to lay blame on white guys and George Bush, and you don't want to think about how we protect Americans now and in the future. And that's what
I think one of the best ways we can protect Americans
needs to do. But you want to say, look, I'm so smart, I was right, and all those dumb Republicans were wrong. If you want to say that, you get to say that, but it's really not a productive conversation.
Yeah, well, I don't disagree that it wouldn't be a productive conversation, and you're characterizing me correctly.
I thought I was.
So, but and I do think that if we want America's reputation in the world to be healed, I mean, there's a reason why those guys aren't trying to kill Canadians. We should be prosecuting people from the Bush administration for the war crimes they committed.
Okay, you want to prosecute people from the Bush administration. I want to fight ISIS. I want to fight the jihadists who want to kill us. I think the voters will have this choice in the next election, and I hope they make a good choice. I'm not confident, but I hope they'll understand the problem, and I think you've certainly outlined it well.
I think you're right. Clifford May, the founder and president of the Foundation for the Defense of... To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here, and please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.